Standing at the edge of the bridge, she closed her eyes. If love could drown, she was ready to let it. She took a step forward. And then, a strong hand seized her wrist. "Don't," a deep voice said, steady and urgent. She gasped, spinning around. A tall man stood behind her, rain gliding off the shoulders of his coat. Under the faint streetlight, his face was carved with quiet power, sharp jaw, eyes dark and unreadable, lips pressed into concern. The night's soul cried. She almost disappeared with it. Rain came down in shimmering sheets, blurring the glittering skyline into watercolor streaks. Lena stood on the bridge, her reflection trembling on the dark surface of the Han River below. Her soaked hair clung to her cheeks, her trembling fingers gripping the cold rail. The city around her sparkled, indifferent. Cars rushed by. Lovers laughed under shared umbrellas. And somewhere in Gangnam, the man she had sacrificed everything for was probably tucking his Korean wife and 2 children into bed. Her chest tightened at the memory. 5 years. 5 long years of double shifts, empty accounts, and endless waiting for a promise. 5 years since she had spent every dollar she owned to send him here. "Just until I get settled, baby. Then I'll bring you to me." When the scholarship offer finally came, a research fellowship in Seoul, she took it as fate's way of reuniting them. But fate, it turned out, was cruelly poetic. Because the moment she stood at his apartment door, suitcase trembling in her hand, the woman who opened it was not him, but his wife. And behind her, 2 children giggled as he came out holding a tray of fruit, his eyes widening like he'd seen a ghost. "Lena, so it's true," she whispered. "You have a family." He stammered, reaching for her, but she stepped back, trembling. Her world cracked open. The dream, the love, the years, everything fell through that silent space between them. "Now, let me go," she cried, tears mingling with rain. "No," he said simply. "You don't really want to die." She struggled, but his grip was gentle, not forceful, like he was holding on for both their sakes. Her breath came in ragged sobs. "You don't know me." "I don't need to," he replied softly. "I just know you shouldn't end your story tonight." For a moment, neither spoke, only the rain and the beating of 2 hearts standing between despair and chance. Finally, her strength gave out. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing, and he just stood there, quiet, unshaken, as if anchoring her to the world. "Come with me," he said finally, voice low. "Somewhere warm." She looked up at him, eyes blurred by rain. "Who are you?" "Kim Jin-woo," he said simply. "And you're someone I don't plan on losing tonight." Without waiting for her answer, he draped his coat around her shoulders and guided her toward a sleek black Bentley waiting by the curb. The driver opened the door, bowing slightly. Lena hesitated, glancing back once at the dark river that had almost claimed her. Then she stepped into the car, her heart still in pieces but her fate forever changed. As the car glided away from the bridge, Kim Jin-woo looked at her reflection in the rain-smeared window, the haunted beauty with eyes full of shattered hope. And something in him stirred. He didn't know who she was, he only knew that tonight, for the first time in years, he felt something real. The ride through Seoul was silent except for the rain. City lights flashed across the window, gold, blue, violet, streaks of color that blurred with Lena's tears. She kept her gaze fixed outside, unwilling to look at the man beside her. Kim Jin-woo sat with an ease that came from control, the kind that came with power and money, not arrogance. His black coat was draped over her shoulders, warm and heavy, smelling faintly of cedar and something clean, like night air after rain. "Where are we going?" she finally whispered. "Somewhere safe," he said, his tone soft but firm. The Bentley glided to a stop in front of a towering glass structure rising into the clouds. The words Aurora Heights shimmered on the marble entrance, a place known only to Seoul's elite. The driver opened the door, and Lena stepped out, stunned. The wind caught her damp hair as she tilted her head back to stare at the building, an ocean of light and shadow reaching for the heavens. Inside, the elevator opened to a world she had only seen in magazines. The penthouse was breathtaking, sleek, open, and drenched in quiet luxury. Marble floors reflected the amber glow of the city lights. A wall of glass offered a panoramic view of Seoul, where the Han River glittered like a ribbon of silver in the distance. A white grand piano sat near the window, Crystal decanters sparkled on a low glass table. Every detail was immaculate, elegant, minimalist, and utterly expensive. "You live here alone?" she asked softly, her voice breaking the silence. "I live here," he said. "That's not the same thing." The words hung in the air. He motioned toward the plush couch. "Sit. You're freezing." She obeyed. Her body trembled, though she wasn't sure if it was from cold or shock. He disappeared briefly, returning with a thick gray blanket and a steaming mug of tea. When she looked up to thank him, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. "You saved me," she murmured. "Why?" "Because I know what it feels like to want to fall," he said, his eyes distant. "And to have no one there to stop you." She studied him quietly, the calm, composed man with an undercurrent of sadness hidden beneath his confidence. There was mystery in his stillness, in the way he avoided her gaze as if afraid she might see too much. Minutes passed. The rain softened against the windows. She found herself speaking, words tumbling out in fragments. About the fiancé she'd loved for 7 years, the nights she worked overtime to pay for his flight to Korea, the promise he made to bring her once he was settled. The scholarship she thought was a miracle, and the Korean wife who opened the door to their apartment with a smile and 2 children calling her Amma. When she finished, silence filled the penthouse again. "He didn't deserve you," Jin-woo said simply. Lena gave a broken laugh. "Then why does it still hurt?" "Because you loved deeply," he said, sitting beside her. "And people like you never love halfway." His words were gentle, but they cracked something inside her. She turned her face away, tears glistening in the soft light. Jin-woo hesitated, then reached out, just enough to brush his fingers against her hand. It was the smallest touch, but it carried warmth that felt like sunlight after years of winter. Lena looked up, startled by her own reaction. There was no pity in his eyes, only quiet recognition, like he saw through every layer she had built to survive. Something shifted. The air between them grew heavy with unspoken longing, grief, and the fragile comfort of 2 broken souls finding each other by accident. And when she leaned forward, just slightly, he didn't move away. Their lips met, soft at first, then desperate, then surrendering. That it wasn't planned. It wasn't logical, but it was real. That night, in the quiet of a billionaire's penthouse above the sleeping city, 2 strangers sought solace in each other's arms, both trying to forget the lives they had lost. The first light of dawn spilled across the glass walls, brushing the city awake. Lena stirred beneath the silk sheets, her body still wrapped in the warmth of memory. For a fleeting moment, she smiled, until she turned and saw the bed beside her was empty. She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. The penthouse looked even more breathtaking in daylight. White orchids by the window, designer suits hanging neatly on an open rack, sunlight glinting off the marble kitchen counters. Somewhere, faintly, she could hear his voice, low, calm, speaking in Korean. "Yes, I'll be at the office in an hour." A pause, then silence. Moments later, the elevator chimed softly, and he was gone. Lena sat on the bed, heart pounding. What was she doing here? She didn't even know his last name, only that he'd saved her, held her, and made her feel alive when she'd thought that part of her was dead. Her throat tightened. She spotted a notepad on the nightstand, Aurora Group printed in elegant letters. She tore off a page and began to write, her hand shaking slightly. "Thank you for saving me, for everything. Please forget me, Lena." She placed the note on the nightstand, folded the blanket neatly, and slipped out quietly. By the time Jin-woo returned that evening, the penthouse was silent. The only trace of her was the faint scent of jasmine, and the note, waiting beside the untouched coffee cup on his nightstand. He stood there for a long moment, reading it over and over, the ache in his chest sharp and unfamiliar. For the first time in years, the penthouse felt truly empty. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Jin-woo stepped out onto the 30th floor of the Aurora Biomedical Tower, the sleek, glass and steel nerve center of his sister's empire. He wasn't here on business. At least, not the kind that showed up on paper. "She's here," Dr. Eun-suk Kim said, adjusting her glasses as she walked toward him in her white lab coat. Her tone carried both curiosity and suspicion. "Who?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The new research student from the US, the one who joined our neuroregeneration project last month. Lena Brooks. Her name hit him like a whisper from the past. Lena. He tried to steady his breath, pretending not to react that it had been 3 months since that night, 3 months since the storm, the bridge, the tears, and the woman who disappeared from his penthouse before dawn, leaving only a short note on the nightstand. Thank you for saving my life. Please forget me. But how could he? He had searched for her, quietly, discreetly, with no luck. And now she was here, working in his sister's research facility. Would you like to meet her? Eun-suk asked, watching him carefully. Yes, he said, his voice lower than he intended. She led him through the gleaming lab, rows of microscopes, screens, and the faint scent of sterilized air. And there, at a workstation near the wide window overlooking the Seoul skyline, stood her. Lena Brooks. Her curly hair was pulled back neatly, a pair of safety goggles perched on her head. She wore a white lab coat over a pale peach blouse, the soft color bright against her warm skin. Her eyes, focused and intelligent, followed data on the screen, the same eyes he had once seen filled with tears on the bridge. Lena, Dr. Eun-suk called. Someone wants to meet you. She turned, and the world seemed to stop. Her hand froze mid-air, her lips parted slightly. The glass pipette she held trembled between her fingers. Mr. Kim, she whispered, almost inaudible. You two know each other? Eun-suk asked, eyes narrowing. Neither answered. The silence stretched, charged and delicate. Finally, Jin-woo smiled politely, masking the storm within him. We've met, he said. Briefly. Eun-suk raised an eyebrow but let it go. But then perhaps you can make her feel more welcome. She's one of the brightest students we've had. Lena forced a professional smile. Thank you, Dr. Kim. When Eun-suk stepped away to take a call, Jin-woo moved closer, his voice a whisper. You left without saying goodbye. You weren't supposed to find me, she replied, her voice trembling just slightly. He studied her face, that same fragile mix of pride and pain. And yet, he said softly, you're standing right here. She swallowed hard, trying to focus on the samples in front of her. Please don't make this complicated. I'm just a research student. You're a man who hasn't stopped thinking about you, he finished. Her heart raced. You don't even know me. Then let me, he said, almost a plea. She turned away, blinking rapidly. It's too late for that. But Jin-woo caught a flicker in her expression, a shadow of fear and uncertainty. Something she was hiding. And later that afternoon, when she hurried out of the lab clutching her stomach, pale and shaken, a terrible realization began to form in his mind. Seoul's afternoon light filtered through tinted glass, painting soft gold on the marble floor of Hanul Tower. Jin-woo stood at the window, his mind drifting back to the research lab, and to the woman who'd vanished 3 months ago, only to reappear as if fate had personally intervened. Lena Brooks. The moment he saw her again, standing under the sterile white lights, her lab coat slightly too big, her face pale but radiant, something in him had stirred, but it wasn't just her presence. It was something else. Something new. The way she moved slower, the way her hands instinctively rested against her stomach when she thought no one was watching, the faint curve beneath her blouse, small but unmistakable. A realization struck him like quiet thunder. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. No, it can't be. Later that day, Jin-woo's car pulled into the underground parking of Aurora Biomedical Center. He didn't tell his secretary. Didn't call ahead. He just needed to see her again, to be sure. The elevator opened to the 30th floor. Inside the break room, Lena sat alone, stirring a cup of tea she hadn't touched. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, her eyes far away. She jumped slightly when she saw him. Mr. Kim? What are you? You weren't at the lab, he said quietly. Dr. Eun-suk said you looked unwell. I'm fine, she said, looking away. Just tired. He studied her in silence, the soft curve beneath her blouse, the fragility in her movements, the quiet tremor in her voice. Lena, he said gently, how long were you going to hide it from me? She froze. Her fingers tightened around the cup. Hide what? You know what? The air between them thickened. Her lip quivered just slightly before she whispered, I didn't want you to know. Why? She looked up then, her eyes wet, her voice breaking. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to need you. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't need me. But you don't have to do this alone. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she pressed her hand protectively over her stomach. I'm only 3 months old. I was going to finish my research quietly and go back home before anyone noticed. Home? His voice softened. And what about the baby? She looked away. I'll figure it out. He reached out, gently turning her face back toward him. Lena, that child is mine too. Her breath caught. I didn't want to ruin your life. He almost smiled, a faint, broken smile. You think a life with you in it could ruin me? At that moment, the door opened, and Dr. Eun-suk Kim entered, freezing at the sight of them. Her gaze dropped instantly to Lena's midsection, her eyes widening. Is she? Yes, Jin-woo said softly, without hesitation. She's pregnant. And it's mine. The silence that followed was cold and sharp. Eun-suk's expression darkened. Do you realize what you've done? She's my student, Jin-woo. My student. She's also the woman I care about, he said evenly. And the mother of my child. Eun-suk looked at Lena, then back at him. You'll destroy her career if this gets out. I'll protect her, he said simply. Lena shook her head, whispering, You can't protect me from everything. No, he said softly, eyes full of determination, but I can try. And with that, he slipped a small card into her trembling hand. Call me if you ever need me, he said quietly. For anything. As he left the room, Eun-suk turned to Lena, her expression unreadable. You've changed everything, she said quietly. Lena looked down at her stomach, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. So has he, she whispered. The winter air in Seoul had turned sharp, brushing softly against the glass walls of the Aurora Tower. Lena sat at her workstation, surrounded by stacks of lab notes and data files, but her thoughts were 1,000 miles away. She could still feel the weight of yesterday's confrontation, Jin-woo's unexpected appearance, his bold admission, the stunned silence that followed. And now, every time she looked down at her gently rounding belly beneath her coat, the memory of his voice echoed in her head. You're not alone anymore. She had told herself she didn't want his help, that she could finish her research, deliver her child, and go home quietly. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't that simple. That evening, when the labs emptied out and the city lights shimmered across the river, Lena packed her things. As she stepped into the hallway, she nearly collided with someone. It was him. Kim Jin-woo, dressed in a charcoal wool coat, waiting beside the elevator with that same calm authority that seemed to quiet everything around him. You've been avoiding me, he said. Her heart jumped. I've been working. And hiding, he added softly. Lena pressed the elevator button, refusing to meet his eyes. You shouldn't be here, Mr. Kim. People will talk. Let them, he said. You're the mother of my child. I'm not going to pretend you don't exist. Her breath caught. The doors opened, and they stepped in together. The silence between them was electric, filled with words neither dared to say. When they reached the lobby, Jin-woo gestured toward his car. Come with me. I can't. You can, he said gently. You need to eat. And we need to talk. The drive was quiet. Seoul glittered outside. A city alive with color and motion, yet inside the car, everything felt suspended in time. He finally pulled into the underground garage of a different building, smaller, quieter, overlooking the river. Where are we? She asked. A place no one will ask questions, he replied. When they stepped inside, Lena gasped. The apartment was elegant yet warm, floor-to-ceiling windows, golden light spilling over soft cream furniture, shelves filled with books and subtle art. It wasn't cold and modern like his penthouse. It felt lived in, personal. It's beautiful, she murmured. It's yours, he said. She turned sharply. What? For as long as you need. You shouldn't be living in a dorm when you're, his eyes lowered briefly to her stomach, when you need comfort and care. Her voice rose slightly. You can't just buy me a place and call it care, Jinwoo. I'm not buying you, he said evenly. I'm giving you a choice. She hesitated, heart pounding. And what do you get from this? He stepped closer, stopping just before her. A promise, he said softly, that you'll let me be part of this, of your life, of our child's life. The air between them was fragile, shimmering. You can't just show up and fix everything, she whispered. You don't even know me. Then let me learn, he said. Day by day. No pressure. No ring. Just us figuring it out. Her throat tightened. That sounds like a proposal. It is, he said, his voice low. A proposal without rings. For now. Silence stretched. The city glittered beneath them, its reflection caught in the glass like another world. Lena looked at him, this man who could have hidden behind wealth and pride but chose vulnerability instead. Her walls began to tremble. I can't promise you forever, she whispered. Then promise me today, he replied. Her eyes filled with tears she couldn't stop. You don't even know what you're asking for. He smiled faintly. I know what I'm asking myself for, a chance to prove I deserve both of you. And for the first time since that rainy night by the river, Lena let herself breathe. She looked around the room, the warmth, the silence, the feeling of safety she hadn't known she craved, and finally nodded. Okay, she said softly. Today. Jinwoo's shoulders relaxed with quiet relief. He didn't touch her, didn't rush her. He simply smiled, a real, gentle smile that reached his eyes. Then today is a good start. Outside, snow began to fall softly against the window, white, silent, and full of promise. The first snow of the season dusted Seoul in white, painting rooftops and streets like a fairy tale, but inside the Aurora Tower, the air was anything but peaceful. Rumors had begun to whisper through the marble halls and glass offices. A young foreign research student, a billionaire benefactor, a luxury apartment near the Han River. No one had proof, but gossip didn't need facts, only curiosity and envy. Lena felt it the moment she walked into the lab. The sideways glances. The half-smiles that vanished when she turned around. The sudden hush whenever she entered the break room. She adjusted her lab coat, forcing a polite smile. She had work to do. She wouldn't let rumors destroy what little balance she had left. Dr. Eun-suk, however, had heard enough. That afternoon, she stormed into her brother's office, shutting the door behind her with a sharp click. Jinwoo didn't even look up from his computer. You're angry, he said calmly. Angry? She snapped. You've turned my research program into a soap opera. He sighed, finally lifting his gaze. If this is about Lena. Of course it's about Lena, she interrupted. Do you have any idea what people are saying? That you're hiding her in one of your penthouses. That she's your mistress. Jinwoo's jaw tightened. She's not my mistress. Then what is she? Eun-suk demanded. Your charity project? Your latest obsession? He stood, straightening his suit jacket. She's the mother of my child. The words hit her like a slap. You confirmed it? I didn't have to, he said quietly. I can see it. And I won't apologize for wanting to protect her. Eun-suk exhaled sharply, pacing. Do you realize what this could cost you? Your shareholders, the press. Let them talk, Jinwoo cut in. I built everything I have. I can defend it. But I won't defend my feelings like a crime. His sister turned toward the window, her voice trembling. You're not thinking clearly. You've always been careful. Strategic. But now you're risking everything for a woman you barely know. Jinwoo's expression softened. You're wrong, Nuna. I've never been clearer. That evening, Lena sat curled on the couch of the riverside apartment, a cup of chamomile tea cradled in her hands. Snowflakes drifted past the window, melting against the glass. Her mind swirled with worry about the whispers, about Jinwoo's growing involvement in her life. When the doorbell rang, she wasn't surprised to see him there. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, snow clinging to his coat. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. I needed to make sure you're okay, he replied. She hesitated before letting him in. They're talking, aren't they? She asked quietly. Yes, he admitted. But I don't care. I do, she said, her voice trembling. I worked my whole life to be taken seriously. To earn this scholarship. Now they think I'm here because of you. Jinwoo took a slow breath, stepping closer. Then let me fix it. She shook her head. You can't fix gossip with money, Jinwoo. You can't control what people see when they look at us. Maybe not, he said. But I can control what I do about it. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table. Her heart skipped. What is that? Not a ring, he said softly. Just a pendant. The promise that whatever happens, I'll stand beside you. Publicly if you'll let me. Lena looked at the delicate silver pendant glinting under the warm light. Simple, elegant, engraved with one word, faith. Her fingers trembled as she touched it. You shouldn't have. I wanted to, he said, voice gentle. Because this, he gestured between them, isn't shameful. It's real. Her eyes filled with tears she fought to hold back. You make everything sound so easy. It's not, he said quietly. But for the first time, I'm not afraid of the hard parts. She looked up at him, this man who could silence boardrooms with a single glance, now standing vulnerable in her tiny apartment, willing to fight for her. You'll ruin your reputation, she whispered. Then let it burn, he said simply. Find out what happens in their relationship in the next episode, which is coming up soon, by clicking on the notification icon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also tell us the country you are watching us from in the comments section so that we will make a story for you.